It's on now, right? Okay.
This Kalamazoo City Commission meeting is called to order. City Clerk Foreman, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Knott.
Here.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Present.
Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Commissioner Urban. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Hopewell.
Could I have a motion to excuse Mayor Hopewell?
So moved. So moved.
Okay, everybody is Commissioner Urban, and then Commissioner Anderson.
I was saying no.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? No. Okay, please excuse. Oh, we don't have, would you please stand for the opening ceremony for the clerk? We don't have a formal invocation tonight, but at this time of the year, we should ask for peace. We should remember all those who are suffering at this time, particularly those who are out in the cold, and those who have passed over the past year. So I ask for a moment of silence for that. I ask that you continue standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation this evening for the Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo's 100th anniversary with Dr. Thomas Wortman, the president of the Kiwanis Club, come forward to the podium to receive the proclamation. And Commissioner Urban will read the proclamation.
Here we go. Whereas Kiwanis International is one of the largest service organizations in the world, with more than 600,000 members of all ages and abilities in more than 80 countries. And whereas the first Kiwanis Club started its service in Detroit, Michigan, USA in 1915, and the Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo, which was the fourth in Michigan and the 37th in the nation, was organized on January 10th, 1917, and chartered on July 31st, 1917. And whereas the members of Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo are devoted to improving the world, one child and one community at a time, by seeking primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life. And whereas, in addition to improving the lives of children in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and in communities around the world, the Kiwanis Club members promote the development of community leaders, positive role models, intercultural understanding and cooperation, and opportunities for fellowship, personal growth, professional development, and community service. And whereas the service provided by the Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo has supported Pretty Lake Camp continuously since 1917, partnered with Kalamazoo Rotary to create Camp Rotokawan in 1921, founded the Constance Brown Hearing Center in 1942, and will continue to have a positive impact on our community and citizens. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 51st City Commission, I, speaking for Bobby J. Hopewell, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby proclaim the Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo as a vital and valuable component of the city of Kalamazoo and the surrounding community. Further, the Kiwanis Club of Kalamazoo is to be congratulated for its 100 years of commitment to the children it supports through its volunteer activities and dedicated members. Signed, Bobby J. Hopewell, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the proclamation, and thanks for your support over the years. I can't help but note that this commission is 54 years old, and my club is 100 years old, which means we've been around a heck of a lot longer than you guys. We've also done a lot of good, as you have, for the community, and I appreciate your support. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Wow, they get all by two.
Okay, Commissioners, you have in front of you the proposed agenda for this evening's meeting. Are there any changes? If there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak to items on the consent agenda, those are the items in Section F. Please indicate those items at this time so they can be moved to the regular agenda. If anybody wants to move anything from the consent agenda to the regular agenda, please come forward now.
Vice Mayor Cooney, can I pull item 4 from
Sure.
the consent? Thank you.
Okay, item 4 will be on the regular agenda. Okay, no one from the audience wants to. Okay, so City Manager Rietzema, communications, please.
None, Your Honor.
Okay. Next, the consent agenda, City Manager.
Sure. We have the following items requested for approval. First is the approval of a contract with Tetra Tech Incorporated for the water system SCADA project in the amount of $190,400. Next is the approval of a 60-month lease for 35 light-duty fleet vehicles, including all maintenance, in the amount of $952,476. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a public hearing for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2017, to consider the proposed fiscal year 2017 budget for the City of Kalamazoo. Next is the adoption of a resolution recognizing the St. Monica Boosters as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of attaining a charitable gaming license. Next is the approval of and acceptance of an easement from CVS Pharmacy for water main installed as part of the CVS Pharmacy building construction project. Next is the approval of a request from the New Year's Fest of Kalamazoo to publicly display fireworks from the Epic Center parking structure on Saturday, December 31, 2016 at midnight as part of the annual New Year's Eve Fest event. Next is the approval of the following appointments to the Community Development Act Advisory Committee. First, the appointment of Tammy Cox as an at-large member for a term expiring on March 31, 2017. Next, the appointment of Annie Sprague as an at-large member for a term expiring on March 31, 2017. Next is the appointment of Margaret Wilson as the Vine Neighborhood Representative for a term expiring on March 31, 2017. And finally, approval of the minutes from the City Commission meetings on November 21, November 28, and December 5, 2016.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 to 3 and 5 to 9 on the consent agenda and authorize the City Manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Massart, is there a second?
Support?
Commissioner Sykes. Clerk Bowling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. City Manager, please, the regular agenda.
We have one item, or two items actually, the one that was pulled, which is adoption of a resolution amending and restating Resolution 16-38 to authorize and direct the city manager to submit an application to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, State Historic Preservation Office for a certified local government grant in the amount of $54,000 to assist the city in planning the full rehabilitation of the Fountain of the Pioneers in Bronson Park as part of the larger Bronson Park 21st Century campaign.
Commissioner Sykes.
I pulled this item just because I wanted to make a couple of comments about it and also just state my opinion on this. I'm aware that, this is a decision that's, already been discussed and made by this commission. And I didn't really prepare anything to say, because this was really a last-minute decision for me to pull this from the consent agenda. I guess what I struggle with these days is that I think these are interesting times for us. And I think we're heading, as a country, into a new era. And I think everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we support matters now more than ever. I remember the first time that I learned or really paid attention to what the Fountain of the Pioneers represented, and I've done all the research and I know the background story in and out. I actually brought a group of young people together at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum to discuss this very topic, to learn about the history, and then also to hear opposing viewpoints on whether or not it should be preserved or gotten rid of. And I still remember to this day the gentleman who was a local Native American talking about the way that it impacted him and his family, his grandchildren who saw it, and he had to explain to them what it meant. And that always stuck with me. Now, since then, we've sat up here and, we've been presented with information about how, local tribes have completely signed off on the preservation of this fountain. And so I felt really comfortable moving forward on that. However, since those conversations, I have connected with a number of people who still don't. People who are working to get rid of, really problematic mascots in other areas in our region. And so, again, I'm sure this moves forward. I'm sure, we preserve our fountain and move forward with the Bronson Park 21st Century campaign. But I cannot personally cast a vote to do so, especially when I know that it causes members of our community great pain. And I think that in this new era that we're coming into, it's going to be more and more important for us to hear that, acknowledge that, understand that, and respond appropriately. So as such, I will not be voting to rehab the fountain. And no judgment, full respect to this commission for moving forward on this project, but for me, it's gotten deeply personal.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there anyone? Commissioner Merriman.
Thank you, Vice Cooney. Well, I thought I would just share my reflections about this issue then as well. I first learned of this controversy about the Fountain of the Pioneers when I was county commissioner. And David Artley, who was an employee of the county then, knew the tribal leaders quite well and was instrumental, along with Ken Collard and our then and still mayor, to begin a dialogue about how we should proceed with that rehabilitation of the fountain. I've been following that for quite a while, and the thing that really struck me as I look back on it is I know more about the involvement of the native people in Kalamazoo on account of that fountain controversy than I ever would have learned about if it had simply been removed, or if it had simply stayed there and allowed to continue to decay. But because of the controversy, a number of people, particularly the people connected with the city historic preservation department, have arranged with the tribes to really describe and mark out where the boundary of the reservation that had been here in Kalamazoo before Kalamazoo became a city. And so that's going to be a learning experience for everybody who passes by those markers. It'll be something that people can learn about from markers in the park when the project is completed and at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. So what started off as a controversy is really turning out, at least for me, to be a learning experience. And I'm very grateful for that. So I'll be voting yes. on this.
Are there any other, is there a motion to pass this resolution here and
Oh.
accept the money? Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Urban makes the motion. Is there a second?
Support.
Commissioner Anderson seconds it. Is there any further comment? I would just like to say that I thank you, Commissioner Sykes, for bringing up that. The first time I saw that, I was angry. But then I read the footnote and understand that what that statue really commemorates is the Native American person looking into the heart of the white person and saying, what are you doing? Where is your heart? And it's tough to get that at first sight. But then I also learned that the man who did that had been a strong advocate for Native Americans, and he wanted to show that. And I was impressed with the idea that there's going to be a number of different signs around the city that are going to talk a lot about what happened with Native Americans in the early times. So with that, I'm okay with it. I will endorse it. Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
No.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Okay. City Manager, do you have a report tonight?
We have one more
Okay.
agenda item.
Oh, one
Your
more
Honor.
agenda item. Thank you. Right.
Next is the adoption of an ordinance to amend certain sections of Chapter 38 of the Kalamazoo Code to change the rates charged for water service. The ordinance amends Chapter 38 of the Kalamazoo Code of Ordinances to increase water service revenues by 8% across the board, effective January 1, 2017.
Thank you, City Manager. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Rietzman. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Urban. Any discussion? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I know that we have gotten some questions about this, and I think there's been some comments about it as well. Why are we increasing the water rates in light of, one, this potential donation to the city that will be part of the Foundation for Excellence? How do those things relate? And why are water rates going up at all? What do you get when you pay more for water? Water is just water. So I wanted to talk about those two different categories, I guess. One is that just to remind ourselves and be very clear about the fact that the water and wastewater operations are part of an enterprise fund activity. They're not part of our general operating funds of the City of Kalamazoo. So as such, that system basically works on water and sewer rates. That's what funds it. Not our general taxation does not fund that. In addition, we cannot charge more for water or sewer at the city to make a profit on that portion of our business to fund general fund activities. There's a bright line between those activities. So when we're talking about the Foundation for Excellence, in many ways, we're talking about a general fund deficit in activity. And on the water and sewer side, that is something that we must adjust rates. And why is that? It's because we are required there to continually evaluate our ongoing operational costs for both parts of that system and our future needs, which will be reflected in the fact that we need to make capital improvements to the system all the time, and for all of us, and that we need to have sufficient reserves to be able to do that, or sufficient income in order to pay for the borrowing that we will do to make those capital investments. So that is now over on the other side of the discussion. What am I getting for this is that, for the most part, what any user of the water and wastewater system is getting, although this is the water side, is investment in the infrastructure of the system. And that is something that should be, I would think, to anyone in Michigan, if not around the country, a foundationally important thing to do is to keep our water system safe, for us now and into the future. We, as an older city here, urban area in the country, we have pipes. We just recognized how long Kiwanis has been around. I think we've got pipes that have been in the ground as long as Kiwanis has been around here, if not longer. So it would be not good planning at all for us to ignore that, to not plan for replacement. I can't even count how many times now already in the last few months we've had public services employees out repairing water main breaks. I think there was another one here recently. Three this weekend. Certainly, weather like we're having right now tests our water system, and often we find that in some areas it fails. So there's significant infrastructure improvement that needs to occur in our water system. We are projecting that there will be more rate increases in the future, but keep it in mind that the rates here in this area are still significantly lower than most other places, even in Michigan, and that we continue to offer a very good water and wastewater system for the money that we pay.
Thank you, Commissioner. I neglected to ask if there were any comments from the audience on this proposal. Seeing none. Commissioner Urban.
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. I would just agree completely with the seminar that Commissioner Anderson just gave us. It's helpful, it really is. Not everybody understands that these enterprise funds are separate entities. But I just want to call your attention to something I observed that is in the possession of the water department. They have dug up a piece of water main that had once been part of Kalamazoo. It's basically a chunk of hollowed out tree trunk. And if there wasn't any investment made in upgrading the system and keeping it reliable, we'd still be depending on things like that for our water system. So what we're buying with that rate increase is basically reliability into the future. And of course, I'm going to support that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Clerk Boiling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The proposal passes. City Manager Reesma, do you have any reports?
Yeah, I'm going to, in some ways, put Mr. Baker on the spot coming up here to talk about water main breaks and boil water advisories and our process for communicating that to the public. And then also, he did do a piece in the MLive a week or so ago about leaf pickup relative to the snow. And if he could explain the issues we've had with that this season, that'd be appreciated too.
Thank you, City Manager, Your Honor, Commissioners. Just give some background on the boil water advisories. When we have a main break, oftentimes we have to do what's called an isolation with the gate valves. So we shut gate valves around the location of the break. Sometimes the gate valves are always where we'd like them to be. So it's not unusual for us to go to a 3-gate, a 5-gate, or a 7-gate shutdown. When we do that, the water pressure inside that area within those closed gates goes to zero. When the water pressure goes to zero inside the mains, any crack or void or pressure loss in the main could draw in water from outside sources. In an extreme case, it could actually draw water out of your home into the mains. And we have seen that in some of our very catastrophic main breaks. So we're required by the DEQ to advise folks that the water could have contaminants in it. We do that locally, door to door, in some of the areas where it's a very small isolation area, and oftentimes you won't see press releases for that. There's also times where if we're shutting more gates and we affect numerous households, or if we affect food service establishments, or we affect areas that are open to public, to where it's difficult for us to get that notification out to everybody that could use that water source. So we utilize press releases to get that information out to the public. A boil water advisory is just an advisory. We're advising folks that there could be a risk there, although there's been nothing detected. If we go to a boil water order, that means that we've detected something in the water and we are ordering any consumption to be precluded by boiling the water for 2 minutes. So that is a basic summary of what those procedures are. And those press releases come out at all times of day and night, and really they're in response to the information we're receiving from the crews in the field. So as soon as we make that determination of what that affected area is, what the repair process was, what gates were shut, then we'll go into the press release, and that's a 24/7 operation. So there are times when that comes in the middle of the night, in the early morning hours, and then with the media coverage, we're usually able to get a hold of everybody in that way. As the city manager indicated, we had some challenges with leaf pickup this year. Those challenges were brought about by unseasonably warm weather, which caused the trees to hold their leaves. As the trees held their leaves later into the season, we had very little participation in our first run. So when the crews went out, there wasn't a lot of leaves there to pick up. When the crews came back for their second round, they were overwhelmed with the volume of leaves. This caused them to proceed through the neighborhoods at a much slower pace than they would have been otherwise. If they would have gotten half the leaves thereabout in the first round, they would have been tasked with getting about half the leaves in the second round. We also had some equipment-related issues and problems. And then additionally, we received heavy and continuous snowfall within our leaf pickup season, and that snowfall has continued and is still out there today. Having said that, we have received numerous comments from the public concerning the performance of leaf pickup. We are committed to serve the public, and we recognize their frustration. What we're going to do moving forward is we're going to have a leaf pickup in the spring. So we're in the process of scheduling a March to April leaf pickup in all the neighborhoods that we missed. We'll be redeploying our leaf pickup crews, which are the same crews that plow snow, and we'll be attacking all the neighborhoods at that point. So we advise homeowners, residents to just leave the leaves where they are. There's no additional work required by homeowners at this time, and the city will come back out and pick the leaves up. Additionally, our crews, if they have a break in the weather, we've maintained all the leaf removal equipment, and we'll be transitioning into leaf removal operations anytime we get a break. We're planning to go out this Wednesday and hit some of the neighborhoods immediately. So I just want to thank you for that, and if there's any concerns, please contact city manager or myself.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Director. Are there any questions? Anybody have any questions? Please, Commissioner Sykes.
So I don't have any questions, but I do just want to comment. I know you guys have got to be swamped. I know it's probably been a really tough couple of weeks. I can't even imagine what all goes into, what it takes to keep our roads safe and clear. I know my kids very often wish you all would stop doing your jobs because they'd like to not go to school, and are very disappointed that you guys do your jobs so well. So I just want to say thank you. And I know folks are probably tired and worn out and stressed out, and I hope, like I'm sure you all do, that we get a break in this weather soon, but great work. You guys have been doing a really good job.
Well, thank you very much. We'll pass that on to the staff, and like we always say, our staff, they have a pride and ownership in this, and it's something they value and take to heart. There's a lot of love for the city amongst them, and they do a great job.
Is there anybody else who has any comments or questions? I have a couple. First of all, thank you for doing such a great job of clearing the streets with the snow. You've just done terrific on that. That's great. Okay, so I've had a couple calls about the leaves thing. So my understanding is that you're going to, if you get a break this week even, you're going to go out there and try to get some of them out.
That's correct.
Okay, good, thanks. The second thing, I've had a couple calls about the advisories too. And people were saying like, well, what about for people who older people or people that don't really watch the media or get in touch with the media. You're saying that sometimes we go door to door. I guess if it was an order, we would definitely go door to door. Is that right?
Correct. Even in those localized area, this weekend, for example, we made an attempt, not saying that we were successful in that attempt, but we made an attempt at every single resident within that area. Now, when it comes to things like food service establishments and gas stations, we're very limited on how we can reach the greater
Sure,
public.
sure.
So we have multiple media outlets, all the TV carriers we advertise to, as well as all the local papers and those sources. We also use Recycling Coach, which is an app that you can get through our solid waste. It's in view from the curb. It gives you directions on how to sign up for that. So we send out to that app as well every time that we have a main break or any kind of press release. Even though that's not directly related to recycling, we still use that source to get the information out to folks.
Good, thank you. Any other question? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Okay, City Manager Reesmith, do you have a report?
That was it, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is an item of unfinished business. Commissioners, at the meeting last Monday, we started to discuss the question of whether to cancel the scheduled work session on December the 26th. The city attorney advised that we need to amend our meeting schedule at a regularly scheduled meeting, not a special meeting. And so that discussion was postponed until tonight. Are there any comments for any Commissioner Musar?
I motion to amend our city commission calendar to remove the December 26th meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Support.
Commissioner Anderson seconded it. Any comments? Well, I don't think there'll be much discussion on that. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so, next is the opportunity for, okay, that's it for that. Next is the opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the commission on any topic should come forward to the podium, give your name and whether you live in the city, and you will have 4 minutes to make your comment. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I have two names. My legal name is Aisha Kazad, and I'm in the process of trying to change it to Nehemiah Scudder. Nowadays, most of my friends call me Nehemiah. I wanted to comment on the project with the fountain in the park. I'm aware that at one side of the fountain, it shows a person raising a club over the head of a kneeling down, or at least lower, Native American, and this is considered terrible by some members of our population. The problem is that if we start by destroying this historical feature of the fountain, or whatever, there's a lot of other things that will fall in sequence. For instance, in the library, I've noticed that there are two books that in the usual version frequently use the N-word. If you don't know what the N-word is, I'll explain it some other time. The two books are Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. These are classic American documents. I suppose we could take these two books and systematically omit the N-word wherever it occurs and put in Black American or something like that. But it would be a shame, I think, to do so. There's a name for this kind of thing. It's called Bowdlerization. Bowdler was a character who took the works of Shakespeare and systematically removed all the profanity, all the obscenity, all of something called scatology, I imagine, and a few other things to try to make them quite suitable, he thought, for children. Well, when you do this, you destroy the historical authenticity that we all inherit. It's not just Shakespeare, it's not just Huckleberry Finn. There's lots of other things. The Polish people have some jokes about them that we probably shouldn't air in public. Jewish people have things they don't like about certain aspects of anti-Semitism. There are gypsies that get a poor shift in some of the songs we have popularized, and many other groups. If we start out and systematically start burglarizing all possible sources of discontent, or whatever you want to call it, we would destroy a lot of American history and be the poorer for it. Generally speaking, in college, we were told about burglarization and we're given to understand it's not a good idea on the whole. Well, I accept that. I think that even though Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn do use the N-word, we shouldn't remove them from the public libraries or put them off in a special corner by themselves to say, don't read this. I believe that on the whole, historically, America has made some mistakes and we ought to own up to them and admit them. One other feature I have is that the government tells us that the cost of living allowance hasn't gone up. Well, everybody that follows the trend of prices realizes that inflation keeps right on going up. That means the government is systematically lying to us about the cost of living. Why, I'm not sure, but maybe it's to gain votes for the government in power, I don't know. But it's a shame that we are systematically lying to our people about the cost of living and the fact that inflation is taking place. And since my time is out, I end on this note. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Chris Umba, resident of Kalamazoo. I agree with some of the sentiments the gentleman before me spoke of about his perspective on the fountain issue. I think it's important when we have a myriad of opinions and perspectives. I think it enriches our own perspective, and that's why I'm on CDEC. I love to have a difference of opinion to bounce my ideas off of, and I wanted to thank you for appointing the three candidates, as I am on the nominating committee. These are three candidates that we have had interviews with, and they all bring their perspectives, differing experiences and life experiences that will enrich our board to further serve the city of Kalamazoo and the people of Kalamazoo. And I want to encourage the commission to seek that culture on the board, in this commission, to seek those differing opinions and perspectives and experiences, and not to be afraid of any conflicting ideals or opinions. That censures democracy, and we've seen, like the gentleman who spoke before us, that takes away our individuality. That takes away our humanity, if you will, what makes us human, our quirks, our defects, if you will. And at the same time, it's perfect. That's the best thing about humanity, our differences. And so, with that being said, I want to encourage the commission and those individuals who continue to push and strive for openness and transparency and democracy and open dialogue. It's not an easy thing to strive for those things, especially when there may be more of you who have conflicting opinions as far as those ideals and principles go. And I want to encourage those individuals to persevere and push way past their own personal comfort zones. You weren't elected to be silent. I want to say that again. You weren't elected to be silent. You were elected to represent the people who entrusted you individually with their own votes cast. And I know Don Cooney, people have trusted you years and years and years and years with their support. And so I want to encourage that openness that transparency to exist, and in fact, to push further and expand beyond what has existed in Kalamazoo. I want Kalamazoo to be a place of openness and transparency, and that's a very tough thing in these times today when there's a lot of fear and distrust, especially in politics. And so, if possible, let's see some transformation in that area. Let's see some trailblazing in that area. Let's see some let's see a staple. Let's see Kalamazoo make that into a staple of its government and governance. And I further want to encourage you in your endeavors. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello, sir. How are you? My name is Tim Graham, and I'm a citizen. And I'm not here to talk about Kalamazoo. I'm here to talk about the world and the year that we're coming into and the challenges that it's going to represent. We are probably in the most pivotal transitional stage, certainly in my lifetime. And the Western heritage and Western civilization for the last 500-600 years, all the way back to Homer and Socrates and the Greek city-states and then the Roman Empire and the whole Western world, which in many ways is a good thing because China is now a part of the world. And since they represent 1.5 billion people, which is about a quarter of the world, it's about time that those people, if you believe all people were created equal and have the right to have their voice heard, which is what people who believe in democracy and our Western legal tradition believe, then it's a good thing that they're in the world. But it's going to create a huge transformational pivot in global relations. Britain, one of the oldest empires in the history of the world, is exiting Europe. Putin and our president-elect look like they are going to be, in the antithesis to the last president, the way it's going so far, a voice that's going to merge rather than dissent. As Chris was saying before, Clive would understand what the Socratic method of teaching is because he went to law school. Whether it's dialectics or the Socratics, you have the thesis and you have the antithesis. And whenever everyone thinks the same, or speaks the same, the purposes of truth, the purposes of life and of democracy are not served. I, in particular, as anyone who knows me, including the staff of the city manager and most of the people on the city commission, very much believe in openness, transparency, and democracy, which is the Western heritage and the Western tradition. It's questionable whether the Chinese Communist Party, Turkey, which is another country of origin in the Western civilization, or certainly played a key part in it, is being taken over by a dictator, one could argue. Russia, most of Central Europe, many of whom have elected Russian-affiliated and sponsored presidents recently in Central Europe. In our country, I mean, the environmentalists in particular are going to have a huge problem dealing with the oil and gas companies alone. I mean, we saw that at Standing Rock, and anyone that thinks that isn't going to get more conflicting, wait until next year. I mean, that's just one of many issues I can go into. But, you know, we are a microcosm in Kalamazoo and in Michigan of the world. And the same problems when I read the newspaper every day that I read about in anywhere in the world, we have right here. But our heritage and our tradition in the Western world, America is no longer admired by the world. And if we put America first, how do we expect, which is what our next president wants to do, ahead of everyone else, how does anyone expect to be admired by the rest of the world when you're telling them that they're second behind us, that we're the superpower still, and that they can't have an equal voice at the table? So I would keep that in mind as we come into this new year, because it's going to be a hugely challenging
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wish to make comments? Thank you very much. So now is the time. Oh, please.
Actually, it's more of a question. My name is Steve Engelhardt, 1210 Sheridan Drive. And my question is, I don't read much about the City of Kalamazoo and energy conservation initiatives. I do read the paper, what's left of it, and I'm just curious if there's a committee or a piece of Kalamazoo that is pursuing that. That's just a question, I guess.
Okay.
The main reason being there are 3 cities in the U.S. that have achieved energy independence: Burlington, Vermont, Aspen, Colorado, and a small city in Kansas. There are many other cities that are pursuing that. I'm not talking about 60-foot windmills in Bronson Park. I'm talking about other initiatives to save energy, since that's going to be a future cost.
Okay.
So that's all.
Thank you, sir. We don't answer right now, but maybe in the comments period, we'll come back to
Okay.
that. Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment? Okay. At this time, we'll hear from any commissioners who wish to make comments. Commissioner Mozart?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I want to thank everyone who came out tonight, everyone who spoke. Did want to answer somewhat the question on environmental issues briefly. We do have an Environmental Concerns Committee, and we also are gearing up with potentially the passage of next year's budget to increase some staff capacity to actually focus on those issues. As with everything, if you don't have staff capacity to do the day-to-day work on it, not a whole lot happens. So it's in the plans to actually have some staff capacity in that area so we can, do more than just talk. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Irvin?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. I wanted to just, I guess, indicate support for what Chris and Bob was saying regarding the importance of being able to listen to people who have another point of view. As he was speaking, I was remembered that in the investigation of one of the space shuttle disasters, there was quite a groupthink there going on for a while about what the cause of that disaster was. And there was just one individual who was brought in as a consultant who insisted that that they had not looked deeply enough at the tendency of the O-rings that join the various sections of the structure together get very brittle when they're cold. And he gave a very dramatic demonstration that proved to everybody that he did have something worth investigating. But lots of times in the non-scientific realm, we don't always have quite such clear-cut boundaries of what's fact and what's not fact. But that doesn't mean we're absolved from the responsibility of listening to one another. And I'm just very grateful for the people who talk to me and dissuade me of my bad ideas. And I'd just recommend that everybody does that. Be open to new information and to adjust. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Nutt?
Sure, thank you, Vice Mayor. I think just a moment to say thank you in advance to the city staff. As you know, the city's open 24/7, and as most of us have an eye towards the holidays this coming weekend, we'll still have men and women, making sure our streets are plowed, responding to calls to services, fires, emergencies, things like that. So just thank you to them for serving during this holiday weekend.
Thank you. Commissioner Sykes?
Absolutely. I love all the comments tonight. Thank you, everyone who got up and spoke. Thank you so much for bringing up the issue of energy efficiency. It's definitely something that I know the vast majority of us, if not all of us up on this commission, want to continue to explore how we can be better And so I think you'll hear a lot of conversation from all of us up here about that moving forward. Actually, City Manager Ritzma has a meeting with me this week that I'm sure he doesn't know what it's about, but it's actually about that very topic, so surprise. But thanks for, continuing to bring it up and keep it on our radar. I do want to clarify, I am, never have been a fan of censorship. I'm exact opposite, and so I just, I want to go back and make it very clear that that was not my intention. This evening, I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging the pain of some of our neighbors, and I know that we all do up here. I know we've all put a lot of thought and energy and time into this. I appreciated Commissioner Urban's comments and Commissioner Cooney's comments. So I want to be really clear about that. And other than that, thanks everybody for coming out. I love the dialogue. I love that, we still, gentleman said earlier, we're a microcosm of the world, and I agree with that in some sense, but I think that we get some things wrong, but we get a lot of things right here in a way that some places aren't, and so I appreciate that. Other than that, have a happy holiday.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I guess there's a lot of thinking about big issues tonight, and I think that's appropriate. This is the last official meeting for us of 2016. It's been a wild year, and I guess one thing I would like to do when I think about us in Kalamazoo is direct us back to the work that we are doing as we reach really a couple days away from the longest night of the year, and certainly probably the coldest night of the year, which honestly I think has affected the turnout somewhat tonight. I'm surprised that our few hardy souls have come out. But to direct people's attention to something that is available all the time, it's online. Our good clerk here, Scott Borley, takes care of that. That's that the agenda for the City Commission is online for anyone to access. And part of that agenda is the City Manager's Report, which in this particular agenda was 11 pages long. It's a lot of work to put that together. It talks about the work of all the departments at the city. But thinking about going in to these darkest days here makes me think about heading into the brighter days that will soon start. And I think that not only symbolically, but in actuality, that is the case for the city of Kalamazoo. I believe that we are headed into brighter days here. And I think that we are moving along a path where we're going to have some resources to do some things that we have only imagined in the past. And related to imagining, that is one of the things that is listed in the city manager's report is the dozen or so meetings that are happening related to Imagine Kalamazoo. The opportunity, not just tonight, but many times over the next few months through the end of February here, for city residents and others to come to gatherings at a variety of sites to participate in this open process of Imagine Kalamazoo, to attempt to provide another opportunity for people to think about that brighter day ahead for Kalamazoo, which right around the corner here, we're talking about our budget, what we can do, having some extra resources. But those are available, listed on the website. I'm sure there's other places you get them also. A couple of them have already happened, but there's many more in the schedule. So please turn out for those. I think now is the time to approach our future here in Kalamazoo with some optimism, with some good hard work, with good discussion. This is some venue for that to occur. And I also want to say that it is astounding, even coming from your car into work or into this meeting tonight, and realizing that what you might be wearing is not sufficient even for that walk, to think that there are people out there fighting fires, spraying water around, looking to preserve public safety for everybody here in Kalamazoo. And that is something that I can't tell you how grateful I am for our city staff, city manager, public safety department. And with this new budget, I hope we're going to get a little relief to people. We're talking about adding some positions there for people who've been working sometimes 3+ weeks without a day off. And I think it's time to recognize that, continue to support those good folks that do that public safety work here in Kalamazoo. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so I want to thank the people that came out tonight, and especially the people who made the comments. They're very important comments. Certainly, diversity is our strength, and nobody has a corner on the truth. There are so many different things that we can learn from each other, so we treasure that. Secondly, Mr. Graham's comments about the changes that are taking place are very, very important. And I think it's really important at this time to remember our values and what we really stand for and who we care about and what that means in this time of transition. And for the energy conservation thing, this is so important, and it's tied to just what Mr. Graham was saying. Critical. It's good to know about those 3 cities, and we can learn from them and see how we could move forward on them. I would like to just take a minute to honor a former employee who passed away in the last couple days, Lois Jackson. Lois Jackson was the director of our Parks and Recreation Department for many years, and she did a wonderful job. She was the essence of kindness, and always trying to find different ways to help people and bring people and make people happy. Find kind of events that would bring people in and make them happy. I was able to go to her funeral, and her younger brother spoke about her background. And he said that when she was the 4th of 7 children who lived in the South at a time when their family was all picking cotton. And he said that when she was in her early teens, she was working 10 hours a day picking cotton for $2 a day. So what she had come through with her life and what she brought to the city, she knew what it was to struggle. And she had a great ability to reach out to those people that were in struggle. And I want to honor her tonight and say that, thank her for so deeply enriching our city. And with that, we are adjourned. Well, I guess we'll beat UCLA. Number 1 team in the country.